take time and consider your options, but also I'd say it's important to always know that you're not necessarily ever going to make the wrong option. You can always change your mind, like I done. Yeah, I picked pharmacy at the time all those years ago. I don't regret it for a second, even though it's not what I do now. I don't regret having chosen that over engineering. It's everything opens doors that it's meant to at the time. So I think definitely have a good think about what your options are. Pros and cons is always a good way to do it, but never be worried that it's going to be the wrong decision, because just because you pick A doesn't mean B can't ever happen again.
My guest this week is John Gillespie, who is an engineer but also had a STEM career previously as a pharmacist. John has a Master's in Pharmacy from the University of Strathclyde, and he also has a Master's in Sustainable Energy Engineering from the Watford Institute of Technology. John was a pharmacist for around 4.5 years before shifting gears and becoming an engineer, which he's been doing for about 5 years now. John is currently a building services engineer for 22 Degrees Limited, which is a company in New Zealand. John, welcome to STEM with Mr. N.
Thanks very much for having me, Stuart. Delighted to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for staying up at night to do this. Obviously, with the time difference, I really appreciate that.
No problem.
Can we just start off with, what is a building services engineer? What does that job involve?
A building services engineer is responsible for all the sort of hidden aspects of a building, everything that keeps it ticking and everything that makes it comfortable for people to be in. So whether that be the heating, the ventilation, the water services, the plumbing, and all the electricals. So what we do is we design all of those systems from standalone residential dwellings all the way up to multi-level, multi-million-dollar hotels, that sort of thing. So we design all the services that keep the building alive and healthy.
And do you specifically deal with accommodations there? You mentioned housing and hotels. Do you specifically deal with accommodation for people, or are you involved in things like factories and offices and other workspaces?
Absolutely, yeah. We cover the full range of industries. We do residential, we do high-end commercial, we do industrial. We cover everything across all industries. It's a good broad scope of work and a good exposure to a variety of different projects that you get.
And I've forgotten what I was about to say there. Give me a second, it'll come back to me. And I'd mentioned in the introduction that you have a Master's in Sustainable Energy Engineering. How does that tie into the building services engineering?
Well, a lot of the energy use of a building is driven by the mechanical and electrical services that are within it. So my passion for sustainability allows me to really drive for low energy, low carbon design in the buildings that we're putting forward, and that ensures that they've got low operating costs and low carbon emissions associated with them. So they tie in very, very strongly.
Okay, and we're going to come back round to speaking a bit more about the engineering. But before we do that, I'd mentioned in the introduction that you also had a previous STEM career, which I think is a first for one of my interviews, where they've had two distinct and, on the face of it, very different careers. So that was as a pharmacist. What does a pharmacist do?
A pharmacist, depending on the situation they work in, if they work in community, for example, like I did, a pharmacist looks after managing the processing of prescriptions. So your doctor will give you a prescription. When you go and see them, you'll take that to the pharmacy. The pharmacist will then process that prescription, prepare the medication that's been prescribed by the doctor, and carry out a whole myriad of health and safety checks along with that medication to make sure there's no problems in terms of interactions with other medications you're taking on or allergies you might have. And on top of that, they can handle like minor ailment consultations. So they can deal with a lot of the smaller medical queries that you might not have to go to the doctor for, and can often help treat you over the counter with some medication for those.
And you'd said that it depends where you work as a pharmacist, what's involved, and you said you were working in community. Where else would you potentially find a pharmacist working?
You can also find them in hospitals. But in the background in a hospital, there's always a large scale pharmacy, so where all the medication for all the patients in the hospital, all the outpatients, everyone being discharged, all that medication goes through a pharmacy within the hospital as well to be processed and checked and verified before it's issued to the patients. And outside of that, again, you get industrial pharmacists. So they'll work with, like, say, your Pfizer's, MSD's, big pharmaceutical companies. They'll have pharmacists within them as well. They work in either their research, or manufacturing, or development, all that kind of stuff to have that really strong pharmacology knowledge to back everything they're doing.
So there's a real broad spectrum there of places that, even as a pharmacist, that you can work. Why did you decide to be a community pharmacist?
When I was leaving university, you apply for what's called your pre-registration year. So you have to apply for your final year post becoming certified and registered. And the position I applied for was between a hospital job and a community job. They both really spoke to me because I really liked the idea of being patient focused and dealing with people that I wouldn't have probably got in industrial pharmacy. So I went down those two, and it happened that the first one that accepted my application was a community pharmacy position in Northern Ireland, in Belfast. So I accepted that. I wanted to have all done and dusted, and yeah, I mean that went right for me because it was very much the more patient faced out of the two options, really.
Yeah, so a wee bit of chance and knowing what you wanted got you in the right place, it sounds like.
Exactly, yeah, that's it, absolutely.
And now I'm going to jump even further back because I'm gradually building up to your transition. But you know, we knew each other in high school and we go way back. But I don't know where your interest in STEM subjects came from. So what did first get you interested in STEM?
I suppose it was just a little bit in school. I liked some of the science subjects in school, particularly physics and chemistry. But I didn't really have a keen drive on what I wanted to do, where I wanted to build to post high school. So it didn't really give me a focus towards the end of high school. So when I left, I didn't go straight into university or college. I took a couple of years of a break, and actually I operated my dad's business with him. And built up a bit of life experience, a bit of, I suppose, customer relations experience, a bit of business management experience. And over that time as well, I just had to think about what I wanted to do and what really interested me. And looking back on it in school, like I said, sciences were something that interested me. And I looked at available sort of careers and options around it. And at the time, pharmacy kind of was one standout along with engineering. They were both there at the time. And I knew quite quickly looking at them that I'd have to go back to school. So I went to James Watt College to do the appropriate hires that I needed to be able to get into it then, which I thought was really good because I'd taken my time. And then when I went in there, I was focused and really managed to drive into them and get the results I needed to get into pharmacy at the time.
And that's a really good point there to pick up on because quite often, you know, people think that they need to know what they want to do early and push towards it. But you've been able to show that there's different options there and different routes. Do you think taking that time out between school and then going back to study and getting that focused really helped you find a career that you could sustain and be in for a while?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think it definitely gave me that bit of time to identify that STEM was where I wanted to build my career. That's where my interest lay, and that's what I wanted to push on to. Because, like you say, a lot of people they know as they're coming towards the end of high school, they've got a real firm understanding of what they want to do, where they want to go. And you get other people that maybe don't quite know, and they almost panic jump into a course of one type or another. And I think it's always good for people to know that a year or two, 3 or 4 years, colleges aren't going anywhere. And if you take that bit of time to really think about it, you'll find yourself on a more, I suppose, fulfilling path.
And you also had that opportunity as well to build up some business and life experience as well. So that's also things that can help you as you move forward. But you'd mentioned while you were taking that time out to think, there were two paths that interested you in the STEM. You were thinking of pharmacy and you were thinking engineering. Why did you pursue the pharmacy route first?
It literally, I sat down and I weighed up both the options and got input from a family, and we looked at, okay, where do I want to go, which way should I go, and it more came down to that there was there was no real major imbalance in which way to go with it, and we just decided, kind of me and chatting to my parents and some of my friends, that pharmacy was the way I would lean to at that particular moment in time, because it was a toss up. Did I like chemistry more? Did I like physics more? Do you know? And it was just at the time decided, yeah, we'll go for pharmacy, give that a go.
And it's obviously something you enjoyed, because there's lots of years of study there before even doing that as a career for 4.5 years. So it was obviously at the time a good choice for you. But why did you then decide to shift from pharmacy and go towards engineering?
I think after my 4.5 years coming on in pharmacy, I got to a position where I was a supervising managing pharmacist of a store for a chain in the Republic of Ireland, and I found myself that I missed the physics, I missed the calculations, I missed the maths, and I missed the sort of that side of problem solving, if that makes sense. There's a whole myriad of different challenges in pharmacy. Obviously, very, very intense information to process, but I just found myself wanting physics more. I suppose I'd given pharmacy the good go, and I had done years at it. I had given it a slog, and it served me very, very well. It gave me a very good degree, and it gave me invaluable experience in a really fast-paced, intense industry. And yeah, but it just came to a point where I was like, you know what, I think I want to give the other side of the coin a try while I have time, while I have the chance. So looked around for opportunities to retrain and get a course in engineering that could open doorways into that for me.
So you're like me, that you were in an established career and then decided to go back to education. I went back to do the 1 year postgrad to become a teacher. You obviously went back to education to do a master's in engineering. So what was that like, leaving an established career and going back to university?
I got lucky in a sense. One major benefit of STEM in itself is that my master's in engineering is an MSc, so it's a Master of Science. So my pharmacy degree covered off the undergraduate portion of the engineering course. So I could actually enter it as in the master's year. So to gain the master's in sustainability and energy engineering, I had to complete 1 year more back at college. But you're right, it was a new challenge to be facing, because I was in a different situation in my life at the time. I was older. I was an adult. I had work experience, and go back into that education environment was different. And not to mention having a child at home at the time poses a different balance of life, work, education, trying to balance the triangle as such. But it was an exciting time, and something that I really enjoy. I enjoy education. I enjoy learning and developing.
And then you've worked through a few different companies within engineering and done different bits building up to, the building services engineering that you're in just now. When you did your Masters of Engineering, did you know exactly what type of engineering you wanted to do, or how did you find that journey to doing what you're doing just now?
I knew I wanted to work in sort of where I could influence sustainability and have a grasp of renewable energy. So I didn't know exactly which way that would take me, but I used my time during the course to speak to, we had lecturers who were working professionals in various aspects of engineering, and talk to them and get a feel for where I wanted to go. And like you said, I went through a few different companies after that degree, just getting a bit of experience in the different sort of aspects that I was interested in. So my first position was a junior building services engineer, and then I went from there to being an energy engineer with another company. So I got experience on the design behind the scenes, and then the energy engineering role with the company was looking at like energy upgrades for existing facilities. So I could see the impact it could have on both sides of that. And I just found the building services spoke to me a bit more. So I decided to veer back into that and build my career in there in engineering.
And another thing that you've done, as well as shifting the careers and going from a career back to uni and back into industry again, is you've also moved about quite a bit for your qualifications and for work. Went to school in Scotland, did your pharmacy in Ireland, currently working in New Zealand, and things like that. Moving about and leaving home can be quite a daunting thing to people when you're embarking on a big qualification or a big career anyway. And what are your thoughts on, all of that moving about to the opportunities? How did you find all of that?
I like that it can be daunting, but it's never been something that's been particularly off-putting to me. I've never seen it as a major obstacle. I've always just kind of enjoyed the opportunity and the thrill and the chance to do it, the chance to move to Belfast after I finished the pharmacy degree, and the chance to build a career and get some experience in the Republic of Ireland after that, and then the opportunity to come to New Zealand. It's all great life experience and great opportunities for my family as well, to see new places and experience different things. So it's something that's beautiful about STEM, is that you can go pretty much anywhere with it. It opens doors and opens opportunities across oceans, across countries. So it's a great industry for that. You're not tied down to niche areas or niche zones. It's very expansive and cover all sort of an industry.
And that's as you're saying, one of the great things about it, engineering is the same. You might have different challenges in terms of weather and climate and things, but in general, the principles are the same, and pharmacy is the same, because the biology of people doesn't change as you go places. Were you going where there were opportunities, or did you have the thought of, I would like to go to New Zealand, for example? Is there an opportunity there?
Yeah, but a bit more down that track. We'd always been thinking about New Zealand for a few years as a place that we wanted to explore and try living for a while. And it goes back to even when I was in pharmacy, we had an early look at it as an opportunity, and never panned out at the time. And I'm a great believer in what's for you won't go by you. And I reckon that I didn't make the move at the time because I was meant to find my way into engineering first. Yeah, and then once I had a bit of experience in engineering, I started to have a few discussions with companies out this way. And actually, a friend of mine from Ireland lives out here as well, so they put me in touch with a few people, and just led to conversations as COVID lockdowns were starting to kind of wind down, particularly in New Zealand, where they had very extensive border shutdowns. So it coincided with them starting to open them up and bring skilled talent back into the country, that the opportunity arose.
And it's quite good that throughout everything that you've spoken about that you're doing, you've always taken the time to think about it and have an idea of where you want to go, between school and university the first time, and then moving to engineering, and then even moving to New Zealand. Every step of the way, you've had a time to think and process and plan it out. Is that something you would advise other people to do when they're looking at their opportunities and what they can do, is take time to have that thought process about it?
Absolutely, yeah. I would take time and consider your options, but also I'd say it's important to always know that you're not necessarily ever going to make the wrong option. You can always change your mind, like I done. Yeah, I picked pharmacy at the time all those years ago. I don't regret it for a second, even though it's not what I do now. I don't regret having chosen that over engineering. It's everything opens doors that it's meant to at the time. So I think definitely have a good think about what your options are. Pros and cons is always a good way to do it, but never be worried that it's going to be the wrong decision, because just because you pick A doesn't mean B can't ever happen again.
And as you were growing up and looking at STEM and working in the different STEM fields, have you had any STEM heroes that you've looked up to, or just people that you've found inspirational within STEM?
Actually, I always like he's obviously a historical figure, but I actually really like the story of Thomas Edison and his obviously never say die attitude. Is obviously the great story about him taking 10,000 attempts to create a light bulb, and it's just that looking at that and the hard work, and he knew there was something there, and he kept going and never gave up. And then there's the old saying comes out of it that it doesn't matter how many times it takes, it only takes once to get it right. So he kept going. As that was, I think it's 10,000 attempts. Or how did they turn it? They say he failed at making a light bulb 10,000 times. They say actually he found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yep, and
so
it's a great story. And as engineering, because you were saying, you like the problem solving aspect of engineering, and obviously there's a STEM hero that did a lot of problem solving.
Yeah.
Is that still something which excites you within engineering?
Absolutely, yeah. And every single building is different, because every single architect that we work with, or structural engineer that we work with, or civil engineer that we work with is part of a collaborative design team. They all have different approaches to things. So there's always different challenges. You might do 4 apartment buildings in a row, and all 4 of them will be entirely different. And they'll all have their own interests and challenges and quirks that you have to think your way through and overcome. So yeah, absolutely. I still love getting that thing where something comes up and one of the juniors might go, I don't know how we're going to get through this. And I love sitting down and working through it and finding the solution.
So you've had 2 very successful STEM careers. Obviously, you've been in engineering now for a good few years. Where's your future lying? Do you see yourself staying within engineering for quite a while now, or do you see any more shifts on the horizon?
No, I think I'm well settled at the minute. I'm excited about where engineering is going, particularly with a major push for, like, sustainability, something I'm very passionate about, becoming a significant part of the engineering world. Now, next year and the year after is only going to grow and grow, and new challenges are going to emerge from that. New technologies, new exciting construction methods are going to be coming down the line. So no, engineering is where I'm seeing myself for the foreseeable future.
And on that note, that is a great point for us to stop with, that optimism to the future and where engineering is going. John, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up again with an old friend from high school and seeing your insights into STEM. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I love what you're doing with STEM with Mr. N. I love following it, and keep up the good work.